The park was almost empty, the last remnants of the day fading into the deepening gold of sunset. A warm breeze stirred the leaves, carrying with it the laughter of distant children, the splash of ducks landing on the pond, and the faint hum of the city just beyond the trees. On a weathered wooden bench near the fountain sat a man who didn't quite belong there. His dark suit was immaculately pressed, his shoes polished enough to catch the fading light, and his posture was upright in that unmistakable way of someone used to boardrooms and power. Yet, there was a heaviness to him, a stillness that spoke of something deeper than simple rest. Daniel Grayson, CEO of one of the largest corporations in the city, was known to the public as a man who had everything: a wealth, status, influence. He had been on the covers of magazines, the subject of countless articles, and a name whispered with awe in business schools. But right there, in the soft glow of dusk, he was just a man whose eyes seemed lost, chasing something unseen across the rippling water of the pond. He wasn't there for the beauty of the sunset or the quiet charm of the park. He was there because his penthouse was too silent, the walls too bare, and the silence too loud. He had grown accustomed to solitude, but tonight it felt different, hollow, even unbearable. The success that others envied felt like a chain, not a crown. His phone buzzed once in his pocket, a notification about a new deal closing overseas. But he didn't even look at it. What good was a victory when there was no one to share it with? He thought back to his childhood, to the noisy kitchen of his mother's small house, where the scent of cinnamon rolls would cling to the curtains and his younger sister's laughter filled the air. That had been home. But life had pulled them apart. His parents had passed, his sister moved to another country with her own family, and Daniel had buried himself in work. Somewhere along the line, the boy who had dreamed of a simple, happy family had been replaced by the man in a suit, the man who forgot what warmth felt like. A small voice broke through his thoughts, soft but clear. "Why are you sitting here all alone?" Daniel blinked, startled, and turned his head. Standing beside the bench was a little girl, no more than 7, with bright, curious eyes that seemed far too wise for her age. She wore a pink jacket, a bit too big for her, and clutched a melting ice cream cone in one hand. Her hair was tied into uneven pigtails, and there was a smear of chocolate near her mouth. Behind her, a woman stood at a cautious distance, watching with that protective alertness mothers never quite let go of. Daniel hesitated before answering, his voice lower than he intended. "Just a broken bar thinking." The girl squinted up at him as if trying to measure his honesty. "Thinking makes people sad sometimes." A smile tugged at his lips, small and faint, but it was the first real smile he had managed in days. "Does it?" he asked. She nodded firmly, as though it were a fact written in stone. "My mommy says when you think too much, your heart forgets how to be happy." Daniel's chest tightened. The blunt innocence of children was sharper than any truth spoken by adults. "Maybe I've been thinking too much then," he admitted softly. The girl studied him, and then, without asking permission, clambered onto the bench beside him. She was small, her legs swinging freely without touching the ground, her shoes scuffed from play. She licked her ice cream thoughtfully before speaking again. "You look sad." "Are you sad?" He swallowed. The word sad felt almost foreign, too simple for the emptiness inside him. But for her, he chose not to hide behind the masks he always wore. "Maybe I am." She tilted her head, studying his face with a seriousness that seemed out of place for someone her age. Then, in a tone that was both gentle and matter-of-fact, she said, "My mommy says nobody should be alone too long. It makes the heart hurt." Her words, so innocent, landed heavier than any corporate speech or philosophical quote he had ever heard. Daniel looked down at his hands, at the life that had slipped away from him while he chased ambition. He wondered if his heart had been hurting for so long that he no longer noticed it until this little stranger reminded him. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a pause. A space where two very different worlds, one of ruthless business and one of childhood wonder, met quietly on a park bench. Then the girl smiled up at him, her teeth small and uneven, her eyes sparkling. She leaned closer, her voice dropping as if sharing a precious secret. "You can be in our family if you want." Daniel froze. The words hit him with a force he hadn't expected. He turned, looking into her earnest little face. She wasn't joking. She wasn't offering pity. She was simply opening her heart with the kind of unfiltered love that only children are capable of. His throat tightened. For years, he had been surrounded by people who wanted something from him: employees, partners, investors, even strangers who envied his wealth. Yet here was a little girl who didn't care about his name or his fortune. She only saw a lonely man and decided to fix it in the simplest way she knew how, by inviting him into her world. Daniel's gaze shifted to the woman standing a few feet away. Their eyes met. She gave him a polite, cautious smile, as though apologizing for her daughter's boldness, but she didn't call her back. She let the child speak, let her offer stand. Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. He hadn't felt this kind of vulnerability in years, maybe decades. A lump rose in his throat, and for the first time in so long, he felt the sting of tears pressing behind his eyes. He quickly blinked them back, unwilling to let them fall in front of this child. He managed a smile, though shaky. "That's a broken bar. Very kind of you." The girl nodded, satisfied with his response, then returned her attention to her ice cream as if she had just solved the simplest problem in the world. But for Daniel, the impact was seismic. The casual offer of belonging from a child he had only just met had pierced through the armor he had built around himself. For a long moment, he simply sat there, watching the ducks on the pond, listening to the laughter in the distance, and feeling, for the first time in years, that maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. Maybe, just maybe, belonging wasn't as far away as it seemed. And as the sun dipped lower, painting the park in warm orange hues, Daniel realized that his life, so meticulously built yet so painfully empty, might have just been nudged towards something he had forgotten how to hope for: family. The days that followed their unexpected meeting in the park felt strangely different for Daniel Grayson. For the first time in years, his schedule once dictated solely by board meetings, investor calls, and endless obligations seemed to loosen its grip. Not because the demands of his empire had lessened, but because his thoughts often wandered elsewhere. He kept remembering the little girl's words, "You can be in our family if you want." They echoed in the quiet halls of his penthouse, a place so pristine it could have belonged to a showroom. For years, Daniel had filled the emptiness with things: modern art, rare wines, expensive furniture, but not with people. And yet, somehow, one child's simple invitation had shaken the foundation of that solitude. He found himself walking through the park again a few days later, half hoping, half dreading he might see her. And there she was, Lily. She spotted him first, her face lighting up as if they were old friends. "It's you," she squealed, running over. She was wearing a bright yellow raincoat even though the sky was clear, her hair bouncing in uneven pigtails. Daniel felt something stir inside him, something he had buried for years. Joy. A small, quiet joy, but joy nonetheless. "Hello, Lily," he said, his voice softening in a way it never did with colleagues. Her mother, Emily, approached a little slower this time. She was cautious, as anyone would be. Daniel knew what she must be thinking. What kind of wealthy, lonely man lingered around her daughter? But there was no judgment in her eyes, only a quiet wariness mixed with kindness. Lily chattered away as if she and Daniel had known each other forever. She told him about her drawings, about how she wanted to be a rainbow painter, about her favorite cartoon character who could fly but also eat pizza at the same time. Daniel listened intently, nodding, asking questions, even laughing, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in too long. Emily observed quietly, arms crossed, a protective wall around her. But she noticed something undeniable: Daniel wasn't faking it. His laughter wasn't forced. His attention wasn't polite. He was a broken bar present. And for a man like him, who lived in a world of endless distractions, that was rare. A few days later, fate, or perhaps something more, brought them together again. Daniel had stepped into a small cafe tilde copyright tucked away on a quiet street, one he rarely noticed before. The bell above the door jingled, and the scent of fresh coffee and baked bread enveloped him. Behind the counter, wearing a simple apron and tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, was Emily. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by a polite smile. "Mr. Grayson," she said, her tone cautious but warm. Daniel blinked, surprised. "You work here?" She nodded. "It's my second job. Keeps the bills paid." Before Daniel could respond, Lily burst from the back room with a drawing clutched in her hand. "Look, I made a house with a garden and a puppy." She ran straight to Daniel, holding it up proudly. He crouched down to see it, genuinely impressed. "That's beautiful, Lily. You're very talented." Emily watched as her daughter beamed under his praise. Something softened in her expression, though she still carried that quiet caution. Over the next weeks, Daniel found reasons and excuses, really to stop by the cafe told the copyright. Sometimes it was for coffee, sometimes for a sandwich, sometimes simply because he wanted to hear Lily chatter about her world. Each visit chipped away at the loneliness he carried, and each smile from Emily left an imprint on him he couldn't quite explain. It was on a rainy afternoon that Lily made her boldest move yet. She grabbed Daniel's hand as soon as he walked into the cafe told the copyright, tugging with surprising strength for her small size. "Come on," she insisted. "Where are we going?" he asked, amused. "To our house." "You can't always eat alone." Emily's eyes widened. "Lilia." But Daniel raised a hand gently. If the invitations were a broken bar, he glanced at Emily, searching her face. Emily hesitated, her lips pressing together. She was protective, wary of letting someone like him into their modest world. But then she saw Lily's hopeful eyes, and something in Daniel's gaze that wasn't cold or calculating, but sincere. After a long pause, she sighed softly. "Just dinner," she said firmly. "Nothing more." And so, Daniel Grayson, the man who dined in Michelin-starred restaurants and lived in luxury, found himself stepping into a small, slightly cluttered apartment that smelled faintly of lavender and fresh laundry. It wasn't grand. The furniture was mismatched, the wallpaper a little faded, but it was alive. The walls held framed photos of birthdays and school projects, little drawings taped near the refrigerator, and a warmth money couldn't buy. Dinner was simply homemade soup, fresh bread, and a salad. For Daniel, it was the best meal he had tasted in years. Not because of the flavor, but because of the laughter around the table. Lily talked endlessly, showing him her drawings, asking him silly questions about whether CEOs had to wear suits even at bedtime. Emily rolled her eyes, apologizing for her daughter's bluntness, but Daniel only smiled. For the first time in years, he felt like he belonged somewhere. After dinner, Lily leaned against him on the couch, whispering with the utmost seriousness, "See, you're not lonely anymore." Daniel froze, his chest tightening. Her words, so innocent, struck him harder than any deal he'd ever negotiated. He glanced at Emily, who was tidying up in the kitchen, her profile lit softly by the lamplight. She looked tired, but strong, independent, beautiful in a quiet, unpolished way. That night, when he finally returned to his penthouse, the silence felt different. It no longer felt like a punishment, but like a reminder of what he had found in that small apartment. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Daniel became a constant presence in Lily's world. He attended her little school art fair, much to her delight. He helped Emily fix a broken shelf in the apartment, something he hadn't done in years, with his own hands. Slowly, the walls Emily had built began to lower. She saw that he wasn't just a CEO seeking distraction, he was a man rediscovering what it meant to live. And for Daniel, the transformation was undeniable. The loneliness that once consumed him began to fade, replaced by laughter, warmth, and something he hadn't dared to hope for in love. It had all begun with the simplest, most innocent invitation: "You can be in our family if you want." And against all odds, he had said yes.